Thank you for rejoining us here on WeConnect. Professor Sultan Ismail is head of the Biotechnology Division, the department at the New College here in Chennai City. We were talking about children now who are reading your books and information that you have been putting out. You've done a lot of work with students and children specifically. I'd like to draw you out on that.
That's something wonderful. You know, what happened to me, my main ambition in life was demystify science. I had a feeling that scientists have created enough problems in our country, you know, complicating issues. When apple can be thrown on Newton's head and he can form a theory, and when earthworm has been thrown on it, why not I simplify the issue? That's as simple as that. And I use these waste bottles and things like that and design simple experiments wherein major concepts can be taught. Because in our country, in spite of the government doing its best, I would never say that they're not trying to do their best by reaching them out with all the software, this and that. But there are places where there's no power supply as well, where people can do their experiments. Then I used to design this, and the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, one day called up and said, when you're doing this, my daughter, why don't you bring out a book on it? And thanks to them and their efforts, and a beautiful team of 20 of us, we joined together. And we brought out hundreds experiments on life sciences, which any child in my country between the classes 6 to 12 can do in any corner without a laboratory.
Really?
And these are called as simple tasks, great concepts.
Right.
Now, this to reach to my whole country would take its own time, because you know how the thing works.
Right. Yes.
So even though we do workshops, we are trying to do it. So we took the permission from the Government of India. I have uploaded them on the internet. So anywhere, any teacher can take them down, from simple tasks, great concepts.
Right. Let's have what is the web page? Is there a web page?
Yeah, simple tasks, great concepts.wordpress.com.
Oh, okay.
It's a blog.
Okay, we need to know that our viewers will actually take a note of that.
That would be wonderful if they can make it. It's so
perhaps
simple and do it.
Right.
And then we modified experiments with earthworms. We made earthworms where children can play with it. And
play with worms?
Yeah, because I would say the worms would play with the children.
Really? Okay. Have you found though that children are receptive to playing with your little earthworms? I mean, and I don't mean to make this frivolous, but seriously tell me, I mean, because these days our kids are sitting in front of computers, and I can't honestly imagine that they would be excited about that.
That's something wonderful. Very recent at the Sacred Heart School, you know, we were just working with the children, and for the first time I was taking worms in my hand and showing it to them, and then there was a beautiful red millipede which was going. I caught it, I put it, and some child said, it's poisonous, it's dangerous. I said, no, it's not, absolutely. See, I'm just touching them and they're not dangerous. Then she said, can I hold it?
Okay.
No, because some people look at it and have already shrieked, you know, some teacher or some elderly person whom they take as a role model, and they shriek at it at that, and then they get a sort of a fear that maybe it's dangerous, so I'm not supposed to touch.
Right.
So it's time that teachers inside the classroom are able to take them and show, look here, this is nothing, it's very simple, and we're supposed to be handling it.
Wouldn't you say that that in fact is the fault of our entire system, because we're really not oriented towards practical stuff like this?
I would fully acknowledge you, because today, even for teaching a plant, they put it on a PowerPoint and show it in the class. They don't take it to the garden.
Exactly. So how can a child actually register? And what are academics like yourself doing about things like this? I mean, here you are talking about making science simplified.
In that way, I would find that several things in the Government of India have also been happening. We have a Children's Science Congress every year, which the Government of India does. Every year, end of December, 29, 30, 31, is a Children's Science Congress. And many children come with creative things. They interact with us, people like us. In fact, people like Professor Yashpal, Professor APJ Abdul Kalam, we all meet over there and interact with the children. And the children have opportunities to interact with scientists and learn a lot of things. But as you said, it may not reach all the children throughout our country. But maybe by seeing such programs through the media, and many teachers getting curious about it, because I would still, in spite of all the limitations in our country, I'll say that we have some wonderful creative teachers in our country.
Right. Yeah. You yourself have been involved with, and are currently involved with, like over 200 schools where you actually are imparting of your vast knowledge and your own experience. Now, I want to draw you out on the fact that you have city schools, you have rural schools. What's the sort of difference between the two, or do you see any difference at all when it comes to your particular subject?
To my subject, I find all children are children.
Really?
And I find rural children sometimes to be more confident than urban children. Urban children are good in communication. Urban children have been good in understanding the theory part of it immediately. Whereas when it comes to handling the material and practically dealing with them, and if I come up and put up a unit and I tell them that I need to do something, the hands which come forward are more in a rural background than I find in an urban background.
Because of the environment
Because
itself?
of the environment. It's the same children everywhere. And I strongly believe, I'm one of the person who strongly believes that God has blessed every head with the same amount of grey matter.
Really?
Yeah, I strongly believe that every child has a potential. And I very strongly believe that our country has enormous resource in human resource. And by just molding some suitable guidelines for these children and guiding them properly, we will have an enormous potential of academia in our country in the course of time.
Right. What kind of response do you get, sir, when you go actually are dealing with schools? Do you find that the heads of institutions, because these are the people who matter at the end of the day, do you find that they are keen to have people like you come over and talk with their students?
They are keen to invite us, they are keen to interact with us, but sometimes I get vexed because it ends with the meeting.
Right.
Right. Now, there are some heads, because like anything involves a little bit of funding. If you want to have a corner where you would like to do some environmental work, then you require some amount of funding. And as you rightly said, I think even teachers in private schools to a large extent today, usually, there are 8 periods, or they call it as period for every class.
Right, sure.
And 8 periods per day. And usually in many of the private schools, I find that they are engaged for about 7 periods a day. And they have only 1 period. And invariably, you know that many of the teachers today are from the female gender, or lady teachers. And these lady teachers, invariably, because one of them may go on a maternity leave or a sick leave, and that teacher is asked to again sit in for the 8th period also in the class. So now what happens is there's so much of pressure on them. That's the reason we came out with these simple experiments that you don't design. You just take a bottle, go into the class, demonstrate something, so that you are also playing with the children and interacting. At the same time, a great concept is being communicated to the children.
Right. Sir, I'm going to ask you to hold on. We take a very short break, and then when we get back, we're going to talk to my guest today about the environment, about environmental issues, and the rest of the work that he does, which really does take him all over the world. So you please stay right there with us.